And we're live. We're live. Hello, people. Sorry for the late entry, but wow, some really bizarre stuff is going on. Before we start our little music and all that kind of stuff, I just wanted to say hello to you all. Hopefully you're all having a wonderful evening. And yeah, right now we're just going to go ahead and start.
All right, all right, all right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Painfully Honest Tech podcast for this, the 10th day of March. Not yet the Ides of March, but feeling kind of like it here in the year of 2020. And yeah, we've got all kinds of good things going on this evening. My name is Jason, and I run this channel on YouTube called Painfully Honest Tech. Maybe you guys have seen it. Maybe you guys have heard of it. Maybe you haven't. I don't like to think that I have that kind of reach. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So we've got lots of stuff to talk about tonight, or nothing. It could be either, but no, what we are going to speak about this evening, we're going to talk about all kinds of cancellations, including cancellations of Apple events and
Coachella got canceled.
Coachella got canceled. Man, if those hippies look canceled, then nothing's going to happen. Those hippies are. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, science.
Exactly. Yeah, no. So Apple has delayed some releases. They've canceled some events. The world is going to hell in a handbasket, as it were, and it's like scary times out there. Yeah, but here we are, Painfully Honest Tech podcast on a Tuesday night. Just like always, we're going to entertain you and maybe do some other stuff. I don't know. How are you feeling this evening, Zach?
I'm looking at the various models of the bidets.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Jump on that bidet train. Thank you, Travis MCP.
I'm going off the rails on a bidet train.
That could be a song. No, seriously. Like this past weekend, we went out. We do a Costco run like once a month as a family of four.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. And we get around the corner to where toilet paper is, and there's nothing there, like nothing.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. Like, and I think there's maybe 2 cases, suspected cases where I live.
Well, I mean, we've got 3 in my county.
That's crazy.
From people who came back from Washington, I want to say, or something like that. Anyway, it's a crazy time. And yes, I've been afraid to go out to someplace like Costco just because I didn't want to see, the dissolution of modern society.
Well, my wife went to Safeway after, and then a place called Save on Foods, and they were both out as well. She finally had to go to a drugstore and pay like triple the price because drugstores are always ridiculous. And yeah, like it's for real, right? It's just like, wow.
Mr. Viper, what's going on with you this evening?
Oh, no. I just finished editing my own podcast, and now I'm here jumping on, chatting with you guys, and I cannot believe what I just saw that you pointed out was happening on the other side of the YouTube. And I'm like, wow, really, people? Like what we're doing right now? Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would call it irresponsible.
Yeah, I call it something. I don't know what to call it. But I figured I'd get the show started before we really dove into all that. I mean, tonight we are going to talk about Apple. We are going to maybe give some impressions of the Galaxy S20
Ultra.
Yes. And then, I think we're going to have a special guest. I think a special guest is on the way.
But first, Jason,
yes,
we got to talk about our sponsor.
That's right. Our sponsor is Audible. And on these long days where you might be sequestered in your home for who knows how long, you want to have some good audiobooks so you can putter around the house and do your things. And we can help you out there with a free month of Audible for you. You get 1 Audible book, 2 Audible originals, free for 1 month. All you got to do is go to audibletrial.com/painfully honest tech and check out your favorite stuff. As I'm still in the midst of the Admiral Thrawn series of the Star Wars, and it's really good. If you're a fan of the Star Wars movies, got to check these out. They start 5 years after Return of the Jedi and kind of go from there. And so it's all the original characters from the original trilogy.
Are they canon? Are they like considered part of the timeline?
Well, they brought Thrawn back in
so it's canon then.
one of the cartoons. So I don't know if this storyline is considered canon, but his character is now.
I could never get into the Star Wars cartoons, like the animated stuff, but I guess apparently this is the final season of the Clone Wars thing.
Yeah,
I think I might check it out. It's on Disney Plus. So
yeah, I don't know. I watched a couple of episodes. That's the kind of thing. Like if I had been into it from the start, then maybe. But if there's like 8 seasons of cartoons for me to watch, them, or animated shorts or whatever they're called these days, whatever the kids want to call them, some kind of PC name. Is PC even a thing anymore besides a personal computer?
I don't know. I want to push this button though.
Whoa! Oh my goodness!
Heck yeah!
Viper.
Yeah.
Approved.
So it's been like started out kind of a slow week on Twitter, slow week on the YouTube, slow week in tech in general. I mean, there's stuff happening, but it's like the news is that stuff is not happening. So it's been a little bit of an odd start to the week. But we do have our phones, we do have our stuff to talk about, and yeah, I don't know. I guess the first thing that we're going to talk about, and this might, and then maybe our guest will appear. Let's talk about Apple and what we've heard about Apple here over the past couple of days. Viper, I know you've been following the story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
All right, so yeah, I actually put out a video last night, which promptly got demonetized, and they're keeping it demonetized. But I was talking about Apple's response to the beer flu, the thing.
Yeah.
Basically, this has been going on for like the past week or so. But initially, Apple prohibited their employees from traveling to the hot zone. Basically, you can't travel to South Korea, you can't travel to Italy, you can't travel to China, this, that, and the other, because of the impact of the thing happening over in those lands. And now we know that the thing is here in the U.S. And then now that the thing is here in the U.S., Apple has taken precautions to make sure that things that are attributed to them don't spread it here in the U.S. So basically, what's happening is that Santa Clara County, which is where Apple's headquarters, Cupertino, resides in, Santa Clara County officials have asked that none of these companies hold any large mass gatherings. So basically, there were rumors that Apple could be planning a March event. Now we know that that's definitely not happening because obviously for obvious reasons it's not happening now. Right. So all this stuff that's going on across the world has also impacted iPhone production. We learned earlier today via Front Page Tech that the iPhone 9 has been indefinitely delayed. Don't know when that's coming. I told you guys in my video last night that the iPhone 12 will be delayed at least a month because of production issues due to the thing. So this thing, as you all know, the beer flu is really wreaking havoc across the entire world. Obviously, it's impacting human lives. People are losing their lives, things like that. But as far as the tech space goes, almost every company have been impacted by the thing. So unfortunately, this is becoming the new normal, like Jason alluded to earlier, with everything being canceled or pushed back, postponed, things like that. We just have to pretty much sit on our hands and see how this thing plays out. So that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, okay, so like I was trying to think if there had ever been anything like in the 48 years that I've been alive, or even the years before I was alive, that anything like this that had caused this level of worldwide shutdown. And honestly, I can't think of anything. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is the 1918 flu pandemic, and they didn't have the internet back then, so I don't think a lot of people got the news. For those of you who are listening via audio and you're wondering why we're calling this the thing, it's because YouTube doesn't really like us to say the name of the thing, so we're not saying the name of the thing. But
don't we unlist these anyway?
Yeah, we unlist them, and I actually don't monetize these anyway. So
it doesn't matter; it'll still come after you.
Yeah, so we're just calling it the thing, and I think everybody knows what we're talking about. And it's one of those situations where it's like some people get so freaked out. It's like, okay, let's laugh about it, because otherwise I'm scared. I'm whistling my way through the cemetery, right? And other people are real serious about it. I don't know. Things are going to get very sensitive as time goes on, but I do see that we have our special guest available to us in the green room. So I will pop him in here.
I hope he's more than just a circle.
Hello.
Oh, geez, he's a circle again.
Yeah,
Circle.
I don't know. I think that maybe John is a deep fake.
Or maybe he's just
And it-
allergic to cameras. I mean, damn.
Yeah, the deepfake only works like on the front page tech episodes.
That's right.
I want to point out that I had no idea you were going to be here, and I just grabbed this hoodie. Like,
Well,
it was just-
hello.
it was the first thing there.
I'm gonna break something to everybody. The hoodie that Zach's wearing is the comfiest hoodie we've ever made, and we don't work with that company.
It is. It feels like John stroking my nipples. It's very nice.
Wow.
Hi
Okay.
guys, hi everybody. How you doing?
John.
This is, if you're not familiar with, this is Mr. John Prosser of the Front Page Tech. He has been getting some information about some more detail about some of this Apple stuff and other things that are going on here as everything gets shut down like it's Christmas time.
Yeah.
So, John, what's the latest you got?
Well, it was really interesting how stuff happened. Like, so I recently like opened up my DMs and made myself a little bit more available to people who I know like there's a lot of people that work at these companies that watch the show.
Right.
So instead of like there's traditional leakers that have inside people of these companies that this is what they do. Like they try to gather information and get it out there. But the sources that we have are people that usually have never leaked stuff before, and they're just employees and just like Front Page Tech.
Right.
And so I've been doing a lot of I get a lot of people trying to make up information. So it's a lot of scouting on my part, trying to figure out who's who. And I actually started originally getting reports about the iPhone 9 stuff.
Right.
And I had sources coming to me and me asking for verification of their position, because I always ask if they can verify their job at Apple, obviously, and what they do. And it was through them verifying their position. I got the memo from somebody verifying, because I asked them to verify that they work at Apple, and they're like, well, here's the memo that everyone's talking about today. So
Right.
Okay. And that was one of the things. So a lot of the stuff comes from people verifying their position with me. And I actually got the iPhone 9 information before I found out that the event was canceled. And so it's been really interesting because you reported on some stuff yesterday, I believe.
I did, yeah. I tried to read between the tea leaves of a bunch of different stuff that I was reading.
Yeah. So those were Apple supply chains.
Right.
There were some people in Apple supply chains being like, we think the orders are deferred or something. But what I was trying to make sure of is a lot of the times Apple will, since they were moving distributors, they're moving stuff to India right now to try to avoid the thing.
Right.
And so was my original worry, that these supply holders were saying it was canceled, but what was really happening was just Apple was taking the orders away from them and giving it to India.
Oh, yeah.
So I started talking to people in supply chains, but then when I actually started talking with sources into Apple, they were saying that they were right at the end, literally at product verification for mass production, when Apple pulled the plug last minute on Monday. So companies, the people that have been the supply holders that have been stopping were doing it based on rumors, which is kind of scary. That they were hearing rumblings in China that suppliers were going to have to halt stuff. So they started slowing stuff down, and the news started coming out about it. But then on Monday, throughout the weekend, I had heard that the iPhone 9 was canceled, but I didn't say anything because that would be dumb. And
Right.
because they were Apple has a company-wide meeting on Monday to make the final decision.
Right.
And they were production is completely done, so they could just decide to go ahead and move forward and launch with limited quantities, which is why I wanted to make sure when I went through the episode today on Front Page Tech, I wanted to be able to give you the reasons why they canceled it, because we've been hearing all this, the production was done, that it's ready to go. And that's true. Apple was pretty much done, and this was such a last minute thing. And it's because the words that are being used internally, and according to my sources, the line that Tim Cook used was that they feel like they're having to outrun it because they were dealing with it in China, and it's starting to slow down in China, and they got through it. They got through the production issues, and they did what they had to, and then right when they fix stuff and handle stuff in China, and they're about to launch stuff, it comes here to the US and it just like spreads so fast.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone at Apple was prepared that it was going to happen so quickly, especially right when they were supposed to have an event.
Yeah.
But luckily for them, they never announced anything. So all these other tech companies have to like say, hey, we canceled our thing. Apple can just pretend like they never planned it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think most people, at least who pay attention, like, us and our viewers and listeners and stuff, they know that usually Apple has some kind of March event. They knew something was probably coming, but they just don't have to go through the whole thing of saying like, oh, not happening. But yeah, the Santa Clara County thing is interesting because I mean they basically said the whole county is kind of like sequestered almost.
Oh yeah, like was it on Friday? Santa Clara was like asking tech companies there to like, hey, if you can, just avoid it. But then someone kicked the bucket, and they were like, okay, absolutely not. Do not have any events.
Right.
Which I think the March events typically get around 1,000 people, which is banned now in Santa Clara.
Yeah, and they've done March events elsewhere. Like I remember 2 years ago,
Chicago.
they did a March event. They did it in Chicago.
That's what they were looking at this year too. So when the Santa Clara stuff started happening, they were like, we could just do it in Chicago again, and because they hadn't announced the venue or anything like that,
right.
So and they still had some time. I'm sure they could have like squeezed in a venue real quick and did the event, but that would just be it. Just because you do the event from Chicago doesn't mean people from all the other states are going to come there. So
well, and also, I mean, if Apple's located in Santa Clara County, and so a lot of Apple employees live in that county,
yeah,
that's a hotspot for the coronavirus right now. Then you're taking a bunch of those people and trucking them over to Chicago.
Yeah,
not to mention the fact that Chicago or Illinois now has to report 19 cases, and it's only going up. So
wow,
yeah,
we've got 3 cases in my county here from people.
There's one in my town as of last night.
Yeah, it's I mean, I want to go on record and say, okay, this is not good. None of this is good. People are, people are losing their lives. People are getting very ill. It's affecting the entire world. It's not good. But I'm also trying to be on the side of like, okay, let's not like dig a bunker.
Yeah. The thing that upsets me is like, when we talk about it on the show, people like they think they know all the answers, and they start you get the people that call it a hoax, which is that those people don't count.
The one that upsets me the most is people that say, "Oh, it's just a different form of flu." I hate that. That drives me up.
The people that act like they know, we don't. That's the scary part about it. We don't know. We don't know the answers. So the people that act like they have the answers just are so annoying. That
are very dismissive. That it's not even just that line. It's just the flu. It's the whole dismissive mentality.
Well, I mean, you could be a nice person and chalk some of that up to just fear and or ignorance, right. or whatever. But like, I mean, I usually don't try and bring politics into this, but I will say that I watched a press conference from the CDC that featured the United States president, and he said he knows a lot about this stuff because his uncle was
natural ability.
His uncle was a doctor, so he has natural ability. Which I feel reassured at this point now. But anyway, it's been a very strange day because I've been seeing all kinds of weird things happen. Like I want to pull this up. I saw this after I watched Front Page Tech today. I saw this and I just want to pull it up and I want to look at this headline. Apple's iPhone 9 release next month has reportedly been canceled. Now, here's the thing. That is not necessarily incorrect, right? But it sure makes it sound like the iPhone 9 has been canceled.
I mean, that's what I did with my title too.
Yeah, it's like, which, I mean,
Don't you love how, I had to do the YouTuber thing, the clickbait thing, but then everybody else, like even the news websites were like, that's not a bad title.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get hammered for that. So, but like, it is kind of amazing that an entire launch of a phone, and it does make sense if they have them all done and they're just holding them back because, it's all well and good to launch a phone when you don't have the proper amount to sell on hand and your biggest customer base is like sequestered in their homes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a smart move on their part. I guess the interesting thing, we know all of this stuff. The interesting thing is like, what does this mean for tech in 2019 or 2020?
Not good things.
What year it is. What's this going to mean for us for the rest of the year? Because as YouTubers, we kind of live by the tech cycle, and we sort of plan our years that way. And I know a lot of other people do because they're manufacturers or whatever. So how is this going to impact tech over the course of 2020? I mean, over and above the statement that we've already made that this is a terrible thing, that
I would say expect more of this.
Yeah.
The bad news that you've heard the last couple of weeks, expect more of that.
No, this is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I think we're going to see more releases. Was it Google I/O? They said they're going to do a virtual, like a web thing, right? So we'll see that. I mean, Apple
I like that, by the way. I like the very upfront, like, hey, we can't do it, but we're going to do it this way. Like, I like Google's approach there, and I wish more people would be less mysterious about it.
I think we'll see more of that. We'll see, we might see more brands leaning on video development, video making, YouTubers, whatever you want to call them, Instagram, whatever, as a way to get the message out because they're not having these big events.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and remember, there are already brands that have a foothold in it. Nintendo they hold all their like event, Nintendo Direct, they call them. They do that through YouTube. So we're going to see more brands adopt the Nintendo Direct approach and probably hold more events via YouTube or live streams or whatever the case may be, because you can't have mass gatherings this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
and it's crazy that it's not just a month. Like these events are being canceled like way ahead of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the biggest indication is there's already been, I think at least a week ago, there was already talk of like what kind of window do they have in which to decide to cancel the Olympics.
Oof.
So they've got something like 90 days to decide whether or not to cancel the Summer Olympics in Japan.
They got to decide by the end of May. That's what I read.
Yeah. So that's crazy because, that's something that goes, I mean, Tokyo is known they're going to be the site for it for a decade. They've been planning this thing for so long.
They've built things, infrastructure.
Yeah. So if that can be impacted by what's going on right now, I mean, that's just icing. Well, no, it's not. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm like so confused right now because I don't know what the proper things are to say about this.
So here's the thing, though. We're talking about canceling or postponing events, this, that, and the other, but this isn't going to get better anytime soon. So with, like, let's say Apple postpones WWDC or whatever, or they postponed the iPhone 9 event to the fall, this isn't necessarily going to be better in the fall. So when you run out of that second window that you give yourself, what are you going to do? I mean, this is not over because you're ending it now. There's long-term ramifications that need to be considered with these cancellations and postponements because this thing is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, like I usually don't do this, but like I explained why the thing is dangerous, like because people are like, it's just a bunch of young people going to these events and young people they're fine. And so I explained on the show today, like, no, you gather at these events, sure, you're young and spry, cool, but what we don't know many things about the thing, but we do know is that symptoms take a second to show themselves while you're already carrying and contagious. So you go to these events, you go home, and then how many people do you interact with at home? Do you have people in your house? Do you live with older people? It's just like, it's so dangerous. Like you go to these events and you go back home and spread it there, and you don't even know because the symptoms haven't showed up. And sure, you'll go to the doctor and you'll be fine. but that doesn't mean everyone around you will be fine, and that's why it's scary because they won't even know till it's too late.
Well, and the thing is, if I recall correctly, the sort of incubation period before symptoms even show up is 2 weeks.
Yep.
That's what I remember hearing.
Yeah.
Up to 2 weeks.
Up to 2 weeks. So,
and that's a lot of time.
It is. I mean, my wife and I were talking about sending our daughter to school. You know, like, yeah, you're right, because it's the butterfly effect, John. It's the whole like, well, this person goes and is around this person, but then they bring it home and they bring 2 friends and they bring 2 friends and they bring 2 friends, and suddenly it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw some information about how it spread in Wuhan originally. It was like a dozen or so cases, and then like 90 cases, and then like 900 within 3 days.
Jeez.
It was really
That's
shocking.
insane.
Yeah, and I mean they weren't ready for it. They didn't know what was going on, I guess. So I mean, it's probably not. I guess some countries, South Korea has been really, really good with their response to it, and they have a much lower contraction rate or something. They're just, it's not impacting them as much as a country as other places. So yeah, but when you think about it, here's the thing that ultimately becomes scary. It's not that people will get sick and there's a mortality rate that this thing has. It's that eventually enough people will get sick that our hospitals will be overrun.
Yeah, that's what happened in China.
Our ability to care for the people who are sick will end, and it just mass chaos.
They were trying to build whole hospitals in like 2 weeks just to fit people in China.
Well, they did. They built a whole bunch like within a week or something.
Yeah, and they don't have to get permits like we do here, so they were just like.
And I just want to. I'm not gonna pretend I'm some expert or anything like that, but I've done my own. I've gained a lot of my own information from going directly to the World Health Organization website, and reputable sites like that. So the statements like the regular flu kills more people, that those may be true, but the main concern here is this: how easily it transfers and the mortality rate.
Yeah.
Okay, it's something like 3.9%. Don't quote me. Whereas the regular flu is around 0.9 or 1.2 or something like that. Okay, so that's the main concern. Is okay, yes, the regular flu may quote unquote kill more people every year, but it's the mortality rate of this and how easily it transfers. And like Jason said, you can be carrying it. Like I could have it for all I know, and I go see my parents who are in their late 60s,
right?
And I don't have any symptoms. Maybe I might get like a bit of a cold because I've got a good immune system as far as I know. But my parents, for example, my mother or father might have underlying issues, and then they may develop full on. Like that's as an example, right? That's the scary thing about it, right? So
yeah, I mean, the number that I've heard most often is 2%, and I think that might just be a very rough number. But if you want to think about how many people is 2%, let's just say that Apple has their event and they invite 1,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. How many people at that event are going to die?
That gave me the chills. Yuck.
Right. See, nobody wants to have that responsibility. Can you imagine the headlines? X amount of people went to the Apple event and these people died. Like, can you imagine having that connected to your name and your brand?
And that's after like a company like Apple would say how much precautions they're taking.
Yeah.
And then still something bad happens, and it's just like they don't want that sort of responsibility as a brand, but also just as humans.
Yeah, but and just because it took me a while to do the math too. 10% or 2% of 1,000 people is what, 20 people?
That's I sucked at math, so I'm going to say yes.
that's not a small number when you think of it in those kind of increments. When we look at this, the big global numbers or the countrywide numbers or those kinds of things, it's easier to like take it out of context. But when the context becomes like much smaller, your town, your
they were like,
school,
get all these comments that are like, only this amount of people have died in the U.S. and the flu kills this many people. Dude, it's been here for like 3 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
And these are the numbers.
Yeah. So
I mean, think about it. I mean, do people realize that an entire country, Italy, is on lockdown? Do you guys know what that means? Like, that means you get arrested if you leave your house.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about the suburb. Think about the suburb you live in and stuff like that. That's like just blows my mind. They're showing pictures on the news and everything and whatever, people's their doorbell cams and there's just nobody there.
And you know when that's happened before, and of course there were no doorbell cams, but I remember reading about the plague, and
nobody's doorbell cams caught that.
Nobody's doorbell cams caught the plague, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would have been better prepared. But I read the plague by now I'm going to sound like an idiot. Anyway, it's a famous novel by Jean-Paul Sartre. Okay, and it's about a doctor who lives in a plague infested town, and that town itself is sort of behind like it's sort of built within the walls of a more ancient structure. So it's like a small town in I think it's in West Africa, East Africa. Anyway, the whole place is like locked down. They just shut the doors and nobody can come in, right? And then it just runs its course. And whenever that's the health response, when it's like go inside, don't come out. I mean, I'm not trying to make light of it, people. It's a very serious thing. It's a very serious thing that we haven't seen in, well, I mean, this is a very young century, but we haven't seen in more than a century.
And I think it's also important for people, like I said, to make sure you're properly informed. Yes, it's serious, but do we need to start boarding up the walls? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, just make sure you're properly. You know what a cesspool Facebook is. Holy shit! Excuse me.
Oh my god.
Well, I go on there. Okay, so I love my sister, but fuck is she stupid. Okay, like okay, so I'm just gonna call her out. Like I had it out with her, and she has a side business where she sells essential oils.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
You know where this is going, right?
I don't like where this.
Yeah, and so she copy pasted a post or shared something that basically alluded to, use these oils and you'll be fine from the coronavirus. And I called her up and I think I make maybe 5 phone calls a year. Nobody uses their phone for phone calls. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You need to take this down now because you can't spread misinformation. Holy crap.
Well,
Facebook is the place to do that, though.
Jesus.
So apparently in New York, a suburb has been, the National Guard has been issued into a suburb of New York.
What?
Yeah, they called out the National Guard. I heard that.
No way.
That happened tonight?
Yes, way.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't remember where it was, so I didn't want to speak, but I remember hearing that. So
you know what's even worse? Pearl Jam canceled the first leg of their. I'm just kidding. I had tickets to the Seattle show. So.
Oh well.
Yeah. Oh. Well.
I'm sure they'll be back around.
They will be.
Yeah, and they record every single live show they've ever done. So
I know the bootleg CDs are the best. Yeah. Anyway, Coachella was canceled.
Yeah, Coachella is canceled. That to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When is that supposed to happen?
July, I think.
Like a couple.
They canceled it already.
Yeah, because I mean, they got to sell tickets. They got to do the whole deal. They got to.
Yeah.
So
that's why we're gonna see. That's why we'll get a WWDC announcement soon, because even though like with most Apple events, you get like a week's notice or 2 weeks, they put out an invite. With WWDC, they invite like 5,000 people.
Yeah, it's a big event.
To let people plan.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, so Jim, for those of you who are older, you might remember Jim and Tammy Baker, televangelists who were famous in the 80s for basically fleecing people out of their retirement money.
They took a bunch of money from my stupid aunt and uncle.
So I didn't know this guy was still alive, but apparently he is still alive, and he got like shut down for selling fake cures for the thing. This guy's got to be 90 years old or something. Like, he's still trying to run a scam at 90 years old. And then okay, do you think I should put this image up here that I've got sort of hanging out?
The one you showed us before?
Yeah.
Yeah, do it. You're not monetizing this. You always unlist them.
So
Jesus, these clowns. I mean, I can't believe I bought a course from him back in the day.
So I mean, I've met Sean before.
Is this like a current? Are they doing this right now?
Yeah, they're streaming this right now. Like how to
read the headline. Can you zoom that in?
Yeah, it says
read the headline.
It says how to coronavirus response, how to turn obstacles into new opportunities
on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean,
oh my God.
Are you freaking kidding me?
So Jason, do you maybe describe for the people that are listening what we're looking at?
So basically what we're seeing here is two guys who are pretty well-known YouTube self-help kind of guys, right? And they are wearing hospital masks with the YouTube logo in the middle and then COVID-19 underneath it. So it's two guys in a hospital masks with that title.
Oh God.
And I don't know what to think. I mean, because these are guys who I've watched their videos. They seem like really decent guys. I just think we're going to see more and more bizarre stuff like this. I saw that and at first I was like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, maybe I'm just overreacting like I sometimes do. And then a minute later, I was like, no, that's terrible.
I don't like the I'm okay with the image, as weird as it sounds, but I don't like the title. I don't like the title. Coronavirus response, how to turn obstacles into opportunities with YouTube. Like, what?
Yeah, I can't. And like trying to brainstorm what they might be saying is really, I can't do it. Like, I can't, like, what will you do on YouTube that will help you get paid while people are sequestered with the coronavirus? I don't even know. Yeah. So anyway, I saw that and I was just shocked, just flabbergasted. And then yeah, Boogie2988, who, if you're not familiar with him, he's a gamer on YouTube and Twitch and other places. He's been well known as well because he was a really heavy guy, over 400 pounds, and he got gastric bypass surgery and he's lost a lot of weight, and he just he's done a lot to improve his personal life, but now it seems to be kind of like fraying around him. Anyway,
he's improved his physical health,
his
overall image, but
he's been having some problem with social medias, and so I just was scrolling through Instagram and he was like, people are mad at me for making jokes about the thing. Well, I'm a 45-year-old guy, and it used to be you can make jokes about stuff without being, whatever. Like, are you serious? It's like, this is a guy who's generally pretty sensitive to other people's situations. Mm-hmm. And he, like, all of this
come around. He has a pattern of going, I say what I say and I stand by it, and then going, actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, I got some breaking news here. Okay. Apparently, Google parent company Alphabet has asked all of its North American employees to work from home until April 10th.
What?
Yep.
Wow.
Empty buildings.
That's pretty crazy, because
everybody, huh?
That's 2 months.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not like stay home for a long weekend.
No, it's not. That's not the month.
No. Oh yeah.
Lousy smarch.
I'm still thinking February in part of my brain somewhere, but yeah, still a month of nobody going into the office. That's
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Well, I would rather see people use an overabundance of caution. I would love to see companies and businesses and everybody else, every level of government, all the way down to the trash guy. I would love to see them all take way more precautions than they should.
Let's look at this from another perspective for people that work in IT or those kind of jobs where we're I guess you could say we're lucky to live in a time where if you work in these industries, you can work from home. Do you know what I mean? You can have your meetings, your go-to meeting or your Zoom meeting or whatever it is, like and log in. And I mean, thankfully, if you're a university student, your school's been shut down. Thankfully, you can still study and take your tests and everything. All the students in the chat listening and everything hate me right now. But I mean, I guess look at that from that side, right? I mean, you can still do a lot of what you need to do,
right?
Depending on, as long as you don't have a physical, type job, right?
So hey, the best people that have the best jobs right now are us.
Yeah,
we're not gonna go outside.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, ultimately, and I don't mean to bring again, this may be somewhat politically charged for some people, but the people who have to go to work are not the poor people, the poor, the working poor, the people who don't make a lot of money, the people who work the manual labor jobs, take care of things that have to get taken care of by.
Well, if you have less people going out and buying stuff, why is Walmart going to have 30 people working today? Just cut it down to 15.
It's a good question. I don't.
You're going to see, layoffs.
And the reason that's a big concern, though, if people, if lower socioeconomic people are contracting the disease, it becomes a problem because then a lot of those people are underinsured healthcare wise, which means they go to the emergency room, which means, again, we get back to this thing of the hospitals just being totally overwhelmed, and eventually there's no more room at the inn anywhere. So I feel like this. I feel like you can go down a rabbit hole with this, and I think it's useful to keep these things in perspective, and to be very aware that it, no matter how much it might not seem to be impacting your life right now, it is, and it will probably more so.
Speaking
I think
of
we need
cancellations,
to. What are you talking about?
I just got word that from my sources at Apple. So there was a company-wide meeting scheduled for Sunday at 8 a.m. And that's been canceled just now. So
it's going to be a big conference call.
I was waiting on that one. I was like, because there was some stuff that Apple was going to discuss at that meeting that I wanted to know, and now it's canceled.
Right.
Guess you know now. I think it's important to reiterate what Jason and John and Zach have been saying in their tonight and in their videos and things like that. If obviously what we've been hearing about the thing is that if you're a younger person, if you're younger than 60, then you should be okay unless you just have some immune system deficiency, then you might be in trouble. But for the most part, you'll be all right. But it's not about you. If you go out and you travel, you could be carrying this thing and pass it off to somebody maybe older than you or another person around your age or a little bit older, and they could pass it off to somebody that can't fight it off. So yeah, that's why it's important to, even if it doesn't affect you, even if you'll be okay in the long run, you gotta fall back. That's false card. You gotta fall back, stay home, relax, chill out, because you can carry the thing.
This is one of those things where you're like, precautions really matter. It's not like, oh, if you get it, then you'll have to worry about it. You should worry about it now. Because if you worry about it now, we won't have to worry about it as much in the future.
Yep.
And we've I've got an 8-year-old and how old's my daughter now? She's 5. And sorry, father of the year here. And we've had to kind of reteach and go over hand washing again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And say the ABCs twice kind of thing, and and everything. So we've if you got young ones in the house, teach them that, because man, kids are gross, man. They bring home everything.
So far, if I'm not mistaken, there haven't been any cases under 9 where a child has died. So it really does seem like the younger.
From what I've heard, from what I've read and heard, it's all been elderly or or 60 plus kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so Rod Navarro here in the chat says 30 deaths with 975 confirmed cases. I mean, and you have to assume that number was exponentially lower yesterday.
And those are just people that have got tested. Yeah. I mean,
yep.
For all you know, someone might be at home and they might think I just have a cold, but I'm going to stay home. And they, like Viper said, you could be carrying it, but you're not getting the full blown case of it.
And like
you know?
Jason said, the reason it's got bad other places is because, well, number one, it's not a good virus to have, but also a lot of these people in other countries couldn't get help in time because the hospitals are filled, and there's just like,
Yeah.
you know, as far as symptoms for some people, their symptoms were yesterday they were fine, today I got a fever and died. That was it.
I mean, El Jefe posts here in the chat about his wife, who's his lovely wife. She's such a sweetheart, and it's very concerning.
I was thinking about her the other day. I was thinking that she might be in that group of. Yeah. I was trying to think about people that I know that are not necessarily in that demographic, like age group, that might have underlying. And I've got a few family members, and then I was thinking, like, who do I know outside that? I'm like, oh yeah, El Jefe's wife, probably.
Yeah.
Hope she's okay. She's a great woman.
I mean, you know, I've got all my positive vibes out for everybody. And yeah, I was thinking, I told my daughter's 16. I told her, like, hey, make sure you wash your hands like several times a day. You know, after you go to the bathroom, but also like before you eat and stuff like that. And at first she was like, why? And I'm like, well, because of this. And then I started to do my doomsday prediction kind of thing. She got but,
in my daughter's school, they've limited like how many classes in between classes that can play with like the Legos. Like if there's 3 kindergarten classes throughout the day, because she goes in the morning,
right?
The first class gets to play with Lego, the second class doesn't, but the third class does.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And they've been cycling things like that. Not that there's been any issues, but they're just taking these precautions. And
right.
So apparently Harvard is kicking all of their students out of their dorms and sending them home. I don't understand how this is a good move. I don't get this.
Well,
so that anything happens, they're not responsible. It didn't happen on Harvard property.
Have you ever been in a dorm?
I've lived in a dorm.
I mean, yeah, it's a nasty place to begin with. But no, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Yes, there is a liability thing maybe that they have on their mind, but having that many people all around one another for extended periods of time, you know, and then the potential transfer from that, like, I guess their thinking is before it happens here and we have to react, maybe we can react proactively and you know, keep it from this being an epicenter. Maybe because, you know, that's the big thing everybody keeps talking about is large gatherings of people. And I mean, there's college campus, college dorm, there's a large gathering of people with sometimes, you know, lots of bodily fluids and things swapping around. And
aren't NBA playoffs coming up soon?
Yep.
I know NHL playoffs are. So.
Seems like the NBA playoffs go on for like 9 months. So they have a warm up regular season and then they just have the playoffs.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, sporting events are going to be interesting. Any kind of mass gathering of people, really going to have to think about whether
I know the NHL recently said that media can no longer come into the dressing rooms. They'll have to be out at the press area, you know, with the background and all kind of stuff. So normally they can go in the dressing room, and that's first part of the dressing room where they're it's just after the game kind of thing, and they can interview guys. You know, they're still in the thick of it kind of thing. Right. So it should be interesting to see if the NBA does the same thing. Yeah.
It's again, just I guess what I ultimately want to impress on people, what I'm trying to keep on my mind is the fact that this is something that's way different than anything that any of us in our lifetimes have actually experienced. I mean, is it the bubonic plague? No. You know, I mean, it's not that. But it's enough, and we're smart enough, and we know enough that if we do proactive things, then it's not gonna. It could not be as bad as it would otherwise be.
So I have a question for John. So we know we've seen like the short term ramifications, you know, concerts, this and that, and like you said, supply chain and delays, and like the iPhone 9 and quote unquote iPhone 9, if that's the name. It's the event has been canceled / postponed, but the device hasn't necessarily been cancel. What do you think, John, are the long term? Like we've seen the short term reactions and being proactive. What do you think the long term is? Like, what do you think this does to tech like a year from now? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so the biggest thing, the short term stuff is people. Is making sure that people are safe and everybody's okay. That means short term canceling events. But long term is what the short term has prevented. So long term is supply chain stuff. So the stuff that's not happening right now, when people are fine, the supply chains will still be heavily affected and trying to ramp back up.
Right.
Like right now, Apple's 2 months behind on production, and that's just because of the 2 months of havoc that happened in China. And now what's happening other places in the world. And so the short-term stuff is what you're seeing right now, events being canceled, people being taken care of. The long-term stuff is the stuff that built up while people couldn't work.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, some of that's going to be impacted on by how the rest of this plays itself out. If it turns
like if stuff doesn't get better, which it's going to get a little bit worse in the US before it gets better. Apple says, that they've got stuff under control again in China, but I highly doubt it because it really doesn't seem like that. I mean, if I were Apple, if I were Tim Cook, I'd say the same thing to please shareholders. It's scary to say stuff, that you're scared in public because then shareholders freak out. But right now, it's just like, just because of what we've seen so far, we're already, the iPhone 9 is canceled or at least delayed indefinitely. The iPhone 12, we might not see till November. And keep in mind, if it gets worse, that's where we are right now. If it gets worse, expect things to be pushed back even more. So even after months, when people start to get better, supply chains they're still going to be trying to play catch up.
Yeah. It's
like I know right now, BYD, they're a manufacturer in China. They build cars. That's mainly their job. They have now been, I don't think anybody knows this yet. So Ming-Chi Kuo a few months ago mentioned that Apple started talking to BYD to build iPod Touches. But right now they've asked BYD to start building iPhones because they need more hands on deck sort of stuff. And they were saying that BYD wasn't going to be ready until like 5 years from now because they build cars. They're not used to building, handset devices.
Right.
But, Apple's making the call right now where they got to get more hands on deck, and that's going to cause, poor quality control. Devices aren't going to work the way you're used to. But so expect that long-term stuff too, like quality control issues with your devices, most likely more leaks, which I said that weeks ago, we're going to be getting more leaks because Apple's spreading this stuff out. So I guess be patient with everybody. I mean, it's still, a $1 trillion company, and these companies are going to be putting out phones that might have defects and issues for you. And well, normally we might freak out because they have so much money and it's unacceptable. We got to remember right now that the people building these devices are still real people that are dealing with real issues and under completely different circumstances right now. I'm sure the people at BYD weren't ready to build 1 million iPhones. So
yeah, that's a really good point too. I mean, especially for us in North America, where most of what gets done is the consumer end. It's not as easy to think, extrapolate out to how that stuff gets to your hand, right? And think about all the people that it takes to make that happen, and that it is important that they are safe and taken care of and doing what they need to do in order to save themselves and their loved ones. It's yeah. Again, I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic fiction, and I've often really thought about this quite a bit. So I try not to let my imagination run wild. I try to be somebody who still preaches an abundance of caution when thinking about this stuff, but it is a big deal, and it's a big deal to everybody and hopefully we won't have. Hopefully people will understand that, and for those of us who sort of cover the tech industry and talk about tech, hopefully we can still enjoy talking about tech. We can still appreciate tech. We can still have conversations. We can still do all those kinds of things, but not necessarily with an eye toward the fact that this is a different kind of year.
Yeah,
because for us as YouTubers, like, this is what I'm worried about. YouTubers want the click, right? So you want the click, then you're.
After all, it is opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to remember.
Yeah, I know. So the temptation is there for somebody, and I know some people will. I see some people have decided to go after the click with this, but hopefully we can all just continue to have good conversations, realize that we enjoy tech because it's something that we feel a kinship around. It's something that we geek out about, and it can be a little bit less cutthroat, I guess. We can relax and just kind of be a community during this. That's kind of what I would like to see happen.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. I mean, we can still talk about tech. I mean,
yeah,
we're in a different climate, but that doesn't mean we can't stop talking about tech. So.
Speaking of tech.
Yeah. Speaking of tech, I got some.
Yeah, I did too.
You did too.
Speaking of tech, I gotta go film my show.
Okay. Thanks for being here, John.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Next time, bring your camera.
Okay, I'll fine.
Yeah, science.
See you, John.
Okay, later, guys.
Later.
See ya.
That's right, Jason. We got tech, baby. We got tech.
Yep. John Prosser, Front Page Tech, everybody. If you don't know who he is, I don't know where he's been, but go check him out over there on the YouTube. He's getting all kinds of good stories these days.
He has a show.
He's got a show called The Front Page Tech. Well, it's not The Front Page Tech. It's called The Front Page Tech.
On the YouTube.
Yeah.
On the YouTube.
Matt McCourt, thank you for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. I saw a couple of other super chats come through. I didn't get a chance to acknowledge, but I do appreciate. I know I saw one from Podcastage. I want to say thank you for that.
Do you have your quack working?
Yes, I do. I got to turn the.
I got mine working.
So that's for you, Matt McCourt. Quack for super chat. So yeah.
Calm down, Viper.
Viper, keep it calm, man. So yeah, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you guys have to understand that just the fact that I went out and got this phone has opened me up to like a world of shit.
Oh yeah. Yep.
People are coming on my Twitter. They're like, "How'd you got that phone?" You said, I don't know. I mean, I was really on the verge of not getting it.
I didn't think you were going to get it either.
Because for me, like, it wasn't something that I wanted to get for myself. But then again, I have to think like, okay, I'm a tech geek. I love tech. I share that with people. So this is what I do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got one. How you feeling about yours, Viper?
So had this phone for about 4 days now, since last Thursday. And like I said on Twitter, I am on record. This is the single best smartphone I've ever used. Period.
Okay, that's not overstating anything. Or I know I hear you. I hear you. We got Ra in here. Thoughts on yeah, we'll talk about the iOS 14 leaks here in a second, Rob. Thanks for the super chat. I have to admit that I haven't put it through any kind of paces. I'm not really doing my review run through kind of stuff yet. I'm just kind of using it right now. But I have to admit that it is really a nice device, and it feels better to me than a lot of other Samsung devices have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Samsung devices feel there's something just like not quite all the way there with the Samsung device. This one feels solidly all the way there, similar to the way, and I know people are going to, probably yell at me for this, but iPhones always feel like just a solid through and through experience. You've got the hardware, you've got the software, everything's working well together, and it's just a really seamless process. And sometimes Android phones don't feel like that.
Right.
Sometimes Android phones, you feel like you have to fool around with them to get certain things done, or they get a little quirky, or they get a little weird. But so far, this phone has been the most solid Samsung phone that I've used to this point.
It's interesting you say about how everything's working well together and it's such a solid process and everything. That's how I still feel about my Note, which is why, I mean, I normally get the S series and then I go for the Note. Right. But I mean, you guys know that the Note 9 was my first Note. Yep. You guys recall that, right?
Right.
And then I got the Note 10 here last October, whatever it was, right? And for myself personally, I just didn't see a need to go grab it. I'm not saying that it's a bad phone or anything like that. It's been very interesting reading some of the comments and everything about what people have been saying about the device concerning mainly obviously the camera and everything like that. And I mean, I can't speak from experience, but it really seems like it's one extreme or the other. It's like, okay, it's awesome and oh my gosh, right? And then the other extreme is, it doesn't focus or something like that, right? And there doesn't seem to be any middle ground. And then it's really interesting seeing a lot of the defenders. Well, they can fix it with software. Well, should the device even be released at that price point with issues?
That's always the question. I mean, I haven't done too much photography. The only photography stuff that I've done that I put online, I put on Twitter, was just the comparison between like the iPhone 11 and the Ultra in terms of the selfie cam. And I didn't really weigh in on which I thought was better or not. I let people sort of have their say. The iPhone was much cooler and had more detail, but maybe wasn't as pleasing a picture to look at to me. While the Galaxy S20 Ultra, that selfie cam, like, is doing some smoothing and some coloring. Even that's what I actually went to check to see, like, oh, is there beauty mode? There is beauty mode on by default. And I turned it off and I still got the same picture. So,
one of my favorite tweets that I saw was Terry Warfield. So if you guys don't know who Terry Warfield, go check him out. Does a lot of camera stuff and everything. It wasn't Terry Warfield, excuse me. It was Technically T, who has a newborn, and he wasn't capturing those moments as clear or as in detail that he wanted of his son.
Right.
And I know exactly how he feels because I went through the sort of the same thing with my daughter and everything. And I look back at some of the photos I took with her of whatever Nexus phone I had at the time. And I mean, there's a reason why when I went to Mexico back in November, I took the iPhone with me and I left the Note. It's not that the Note was bad. It's just that I know that when I took one photo one time with my iPhone, it would be perfectly clear. And you guys saw some of the photos I took and everything like that. And that's not to say that the Note 10 is bad. You guys saw some of the photos I took last year in the mountains and everything like that. But I just find that sometimes I have to take a photo 2 or 3 times, not all the time, but enough that I don't have 100% confidence that I'm always going to get it the first time, one time. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
If that makes any sense. Does that make sense, Viper? I mean, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So, where do I begin with this? There's so many layers I need to talk about with this right now. All right. So let's start with my original statement. Because I've gotten a lot. I gotten flack on Twitter for my statements and things like that. But so the original statement that I made was, this is the best smartphone I, keyword being I, have ever used. I never said it was the best smartphone ever. I never said it was the best smartphone you have used. I said it was the best smartphone I have used, which means that it's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it.
Well, that's just like, your opinion.
Exactly. So if you hate Samsung or you don't feel that way or you feel a different way, that's fine. My opinion doesn't care about your feelings or your brand loyalty. My opinion belongs to me. That's how I feel. Secondly, I feel about this phone the same way I felt about the iPhone 11 Pro Max. It seems like Samsung did a few tweaks and refinements to make this like the ultimate like Galaxy experience. Chief among them being a 120 hertz refresh rate. I was not really on board. I mean, I've had arguments with Marquette Brownlee about this very topic, but then I used this next to an iPhone 11 Pro Max, and holy shit. You notice it. Like, you don't see it. It's not something that you see. It's something that you feel. Like, it's hard to explain, but if you're using this and you go back to using an iPhone, the iPhone feels slow. It feels outdated. It's hard to explain, but if you use a 60 hertz phone next to a 120 hertz phone, you will feel it. You won't see the difference, but you will feel the difference, and it will be evident. So
I had what was it? Was it 90 hertz on the Razor 2? I think it was yeah.
No, that's 120.
The Razor 2 had 120.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I mean, I always, like you said, felt the difference. It's weird to say felt something visual, right? But I know what you mean by
Well, see, one of the big differences that you're supposed to experience, or that's supposed to benefit your experience with the 120 hertz, is that the tactility of the interface is more one-to-one. It feels more interactive, like your finger is actually touching and moving things.
And speaking of that, Jason, I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing that Samsung did on top of having a 120 hertz refresh rate is this phone has a 240 hertz touch sensitivity on it too. So when you combine those two, you really get a unique experience that just isn't on most smartphones. Now, of course, most people's concentration with the phone is the camera. And you know what? I can't really disagree too much. If you it does have autofocus issues, but what I've noticed is that the autofocus issues that I have noticed come across when I try to use the 108 megapixel mode. And why the hell is that even a mode? Like, that should be built in to the natural camera app, but I digress. So when you go and choose the 108 megapixel mode, it does have trouble focusing. Now, Marquez made an excellent explanation in his video. He talked about how the sensor is so big and it's letting in so much light that it's hard to focus on the subject and things like that. And that is why it's probably having some of the autofocus issues that it has. That sounds reasonable to me. So I think some of it is that, because when I use the regular mode, the non-108 megapixel mode, it seems to me that the autofocus does work better. Now, in terms of the front-facing camera, as far as the autofocusing, it seems like it focuses pretty well on the pictures. I don't have any issues with that. But in the video, and I've had these issues with Samsung phone for the past 2 years now, but it seems like with the front-facing camera, when I'm shooting video, and it does tend to focus on a little bit, so that's kind of annoying. But again, that's an issue I've had with Samsung phone for like 2 years, so I don't know. But my big thing, and I know I'm kind of in the minority with this, is that I kind of know how to take pictures. I know how to get the shot that I want. So the issues on here don't bother me because I know what to do to get the shot that I want. But if you're an everyday Joe and you're just pointing and shooting, then you might have some issues with the device that you try to use it in like 108 megapixel mode or just in general, because the autofocus does need work. But
are you guys finding the device physically too big or issues with it?
No,
it's 6.9, right?
Yep,
it's 6.9. I will say that the first day or so, it felt too big. It felt kind of top heavy, because people say that this doesn't change the balance of the phone, but I definitely could feel the camera hump as part of the, being kind of a top heavy thing. Now it's like not really, it's not uncomfortable for it to be top heavy. In fact, it kind of feels nice because it bounces differently in your hand. The one thing that I did was I decided to put my Kindle down and pick this up and use this as a Kindle. Now the Kindle has like a 7-inch screen, but the aspect ratio is totally different. But I really had enjoyed myself using this as a Kindle, just reading a book. And that's hard to do on a lot of smartphones. A lot of smartphones, it feels either too squat or too thin or whatever. This seemed like just the right aspect. And the only other smartphone I've ever been able to do that with were the Note smartphones.
Were you able to turn on a setting so it's easier on your eyes, or did you just turn on the blue light setting?
When I read on like an iPad, a smartphone, something like that, I always do white on black.
Okay.
And that's much easier on my eyes.
Gotcha.
And that's one thing that I bought the Kindle Paperwhite, the most recent Kindle Paperwhite, which I love Kindles. I kind of wish I would have spent the extra money on the Kindle Oasis though, because it will do white on black, which I read in the dark as I'm trying to go to sleep. And white, any kind of brightness is just too much for me.
And this thing gets real bright if you put it up. Yeah. So a couple other things. One of the points of consternation that I had before I got the device was the fact that it has a 120 hertz refresh rate, but you can only access it if you use it at a regular 1080p HD. Obviously, this is a quad HD device, so you have the ability to turn it up to quad HD. But if you do that, you lose the ability to operate it at 120 hertz refresh rate. I have decided to keep it at regular HD 1080p and use 120 hertz, and I do not regret my decision at all. So there you go. Take that for what it is.
No, I set mine at 120 and I just kept it there.
Yep.
I've been impressed with the battery life.
Yeah, me too. Pretty good, especially for it being on 120 hertz refresh rate.
Yeah,
still pretty good battery life. The only other thing that kind of annoys me about this phone is the stupid ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It's the same one from last year, so it's still hit and miss. It's
no improvement on that?
No, none.
This one's working better for me than any of the
others. You guys should turn on that plus the face unlock, and then you'll have.
I've got the face unlock going too.
Yeah,
that was one thing that bothered me about the LG G8X was that it didn't have face unlock. And on an Android phone, except for the Pixel 4, which was really pretty good, on an Android phone, it's like the secondary thing that if the first one doesn't catch, then maybe that'll catch before you have to do the first one again with the face unlock, So I do have the face unlock. It seems a little faster, not quite. It's not reliable, but it's a little faster. And then the fingerprint, like I have not had good experiences with under the screen fingerprint readers. One thing I noticed though is that I don't know how much they focused on this when you put your fingerprint in, but they encouraged you to do a lot of different angles. And since I look at my phone this way with my thumb sort of toward the side, I made sure that I got side angles of all the fingers that I used.
Actually, I think something else that they suggested, and I think Zach suggested it last year, which I did with this, since I registered my fingerprint in two different ways. So that way you can get all the different angles, like you said, Jake, get all the different angles. And
I don't know about you guys, but like along with the doing your thumb multiple ways and both thumbs, like so for example, here's my Note 10. Right. I'm gonna push the button on the side to wake it up and unlocked.
Right. So
I've had success with this. More success with just using the face unlock on here than I have. Like I said, just having both is kind of a good thing, right? Yeah. So it just makes it easy. Especially when you come from using an iPhone, it's like, oh, Face ID.
I don't like both buttons on the side.
I don't either. I find myself hitting the power button instead of the volume rocker, or the volume rocker instead of the power button. I wish they were switched.
Totally throws you off when you go from using an iPhone mostly. Hey, when I came back from Mexico after using my iPhone for 10 days, I had the same issue, Viper, just constantly hitting those. Yeah. But it's interesting they did that on the Galaxy series, because last year was the last year they had it on both sides,
right? And
then the Note had it on both, had all buttons on one side, and then here we are, all on one side. So I think they're gonna do that model for going forward.
I mean, I feel like my finger hits the button. Like if I hold it naturally in my hand, my middle finger hits the button where it should, right? But it's when I'm watching video or something like that, and I've got it in landscape mode, that I accidentally shut the phone off.
Right. Yep.
Did you guys remap or do anything with your Bixby key?
Yeah, I disabled the Bixby.
There's no.
Yeah, the power button is the Bixby key. I disabled it.
I left it as double tap for the camera.
Okay.
That's what it came set as.
I have mine double tap and it opens up Google Now, or like news and stuff like that, right?
So Jason, by default, if you press and hold the power button, it will bring up Bixby, but you can change that to have it bring up the power off option. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I got.
There you go.
The other thing that I've used a little bit on the phone that I didn't think I would use much is the zoom. The zoom is pretty good. Obviously, anything over 10 times zoom is not going to be very usable, but you can do some pretty practical things with the zoom that I'm kind of surprised about. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. How would you say the clarity is for your photos? I don't know if you guys have done this yet, having it mounted, so like on a tripod, so you don't have the natural and then going all the way in 100 times. Like, have you tried yet? Have you guys tried yet?
I don't have that set up. I would not know.
Yeah, I haven't done anything like that quite yet either. I've taken a few static photos. again, like I don't leave the house, so so there's not a whole lot to take pictures of.
Yeah.
But I will before I do my review, I will go out and I'm going to make an effort this time to do more stuff related to the camera, because the more I watch other people's coverage of camera stuff, the more I'm kind of like, they're not as realistic as most people would use the camera.
Jason,
You know what I mean? Well, I just, people love to geek out about stuff, and I get it. So they geek out about the camera and they do all these comparisons and all this other stuff. 90% of that, nobody who's watching the video cares.
Yeah.
Because they just want to know what it's gonna look like when they take a picture of their kid.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said earlier, basically that is taking the phone out, pointing and shooting. You don't think about the autofocus when you're taking a picture. You expect it to work. And that can't be an issue with the phone. But one cool thing, though, that I do kind of love about the phone, now I got the crazy maxed out model with 16 gigabytes of RAM, but this phone can hold 5 apps in memory. So basically what you can do is you can like be gaming or something like that, and you can lock your game in memory so you can pick up right where you left off if you have to do something else on the phone. You can do 5 applications like that at the same time and have them locked in memory. So you can navigate other areas of the phone, go to other apps, things like that, and then come right back to where you left off. And those apps that you have locked, I thought it was 3, but then I found out the phone said, no, we can lock 5. So the fact that you can lock 5 apps in memory is crazy.
Yeah, Dwayne says this 12 gigabyte model will do 3.
Okay.
I haven't really looked into that very much, but the thing is, like, here's what I did notice, because I went straight from using the G8X to using this. And the G8X, as much as I liked it as a phone, as much as I still say, for the money that thing costs and get the dual screen and everything else, like, it's a crazy great deal, and it would be more than enough phone for a huge portion of the people who need a phone at that price, right? But it was a little laggy sometimes. Now, Samsung phones are always have always had a reputation for being laggy.
That's 2 years, 3 years ago.
But I mean, I'm not saying that I expected it to be laggy now, because I do know that One UI has really helped with that. However, every time I use an Android phone, I feel like I start to notice some hiccups after several days. And so far with this, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
It feels very fast. It feels very responsive, all the things that people say. And usually with me, after 3 or 4 days of using an Android phone, I will have hit a couple of glitches somewhere.
So I had a some of an issue, but it wasn't the phone's fault, as I was later to learn. As I was using Twitter for the first few days on the phone, Twitter would lag and stop and freeze, and it was irking me. So I put out a tweet saying, how does this phone have 16 gigabytes of RAM, this and that and the other? And Twitter is just like crashing and burning on me. And a lot of people respond like, it's not the phone, Viper, it's actually the Twitter app, and it needs to be updated. So Twitter actually put out an update, and ever since Twitter put out the update, no issues. So it must have been something with Twitter.
Yeah. I didn't have any issues with the Twitter app, but I'm not as heavy a Twitter app user as I believe you are.
Did you guys get your your security patch update probably early last week or late last week?
As soon as I turned the phone on, I got an update.
Yeah. So I got it here on my Note 10 as well. So I'll give a really good credit to Samsung being on top of updates. I've always seemed to get them like right away during the first week of the month kind of thing. So
yeah,
good on them. Right.
And the one thing that bugs me today, like I turned on my V50 today to do a security thing for Google, and I hadn't had it on for a little bit because I was using the other LG phone. And I know that other versions of the V50 have already gotten their Android 10 updates. My Verizon still no Android 10 update.
And that's a carrier thing.
Yeah, it's just really annoying. It's just really annoying because, again, like, it used to be all about like, well, I want to get X new feature or whatever, but now it's more like I just want to know that everything's buttoned up the way that it's supposed to be at this moment. And I'm having the best experience and the most secure experience that I can have with the phone. So yeah, I mean, I still have to say that the gigantic caveat that goes along with this phone that makes it incredibly difficult to say even good things about it is the price. If this phone was $1,200, I might even forgive that. But $1,400 to start for this phone seems egregious to me still.
You know what? That is true. And I myself have a hard time saying that any phone is over worth $1,000, this, that, and the other. But for all the stuff that this phone throws in there in the kitchen sink, I mean, you get kind of what you pay for with this phone with all the tech they throw in here. So
you're spending a lot of money and you're getting a lot of phone. I don't disagree with you on that.
Right.
But I really don't think that it has to be that much money.
Oh, I mean, I'm not arguing with you on that one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying at this point, it's a personal thing. Do you want the best of the best? You got to pay to, like Frosty Carter says, you got to pay to play, baby. You got to pay to play. Otherwise, you can go with an S20 Plus or S20.
Yeah, I did see that tweet about the V60 being featured in Eminem's new video. So LG must be trying to play some marketing games or something, or maybe that's the only time we'll see it.
Yeah, and it got the ire of MKBHD.
Well, I didn't see that. What did he say?
Oh, he was talking about how there was obvious product placement in that video, which was a YouTube video, but there was no indication of any type of brand sponsorship with LG in the video or anything like that. And if we do something like that, Jason, they'd be all up our ass. So I think that's why Marquez was mad about that.
I'm sorry, but I Marquez, it's like here's the tower, he's on top of it, and everything else goes down. So I don't blame him. Like if Eminem gets them to sponsor part of his video and he puts it on YouTube, maybe I haven't looked at the video, so I didn't go into the metadata to see if they claimed it as sponsored or anything like that. But
have you guys tried to get your hands on an Escobar phone? Seems like all you have to do is tell them that you're a YouTuber, and here you go.
Well, I did see a tweet from our friend Marquez Brownlee this evening, where he did get an Escobar fold, and he did peel the gold plastic
side up. It says Samsung,
and it's got a Samsung logo right across the spine. So that's some shady stuff right there.
Oh yeah.
That's some very shady stuff.
So,
which, I mean, I've been watching. So friends of mine have been telling me like, oh, have you been watching Narcos? They got the new season out. I'm like, no, I didn't really finish watching season 1. So they're like, oh, you got to watch it. So I've been watching it. And so now I see the Escobar fold and I'm just like, this seems like par for the course for the Escobar family.
Yo, Jason.
Yeah.
We got a comment in the chat from Dwayne Mims. Says Samsung can literally be your only media device. If you think about it, $1,400 is actually a bargain.
If you can do that. Now, I don't disagree with you. There are peripherals that have to go along with that, unless you're not going to use it as like a desktop type solution as well as on the go type solution. I don't disagree with you on that, the fact that it's capable of doing all that stuff. But I don't think that at this point we as a customer base and Samsung as a company haven't set ourselves up for that to be actually what we're trying to do.
I used to
disagree
up until I left the distributor I was working for last March. Actually, it's been about a year. It'll be a year at the end of this month that I left them. I used my Note 9 for probably 90% of what I could do. The only time I'd really use my laptop is when I need to do like a lot of spreadsheet stuff. Like you can do spreadsheet stuff on a Note. Right. I mean, thank God you have the S Pen. But when I really need to see like the data all in front of me, I'd open my laptop. But I could do like 95% of my job with my Note. So I kind of agree with that sentiment right there. I mean, you can do all-encompassing media device, I guess, depending on your situation, right?
So Daniel Bieberson's asking, is the S20 Plus a better buy? And I think most people will probably agree with that sentiment. It probably is the better buy.
That is the better buy.
Yeah, I think that $1,000 for the S20 is too much. I think $1,400 for the S20 Ultra is too much. I think what you're not getting in the S20 Plus is a fair enough trade for that price.
The Ultra is for spec. I mean, I hate to use this term, but like spec nerds, the people that want like the latest and greatest, right?
Guilty. Guilty.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Woo! Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that guy right there.
Guilty in charge.
Right, and like, and Samsung knows that, right? So I fully expect there to be like an Ultra Note.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you imagine that?
Oh yeah.
And Jason, it'll have everything except for a headphone jack.
So I've one of our favorite leaguers told me that the Note 20 Ultra is going to be pretty much the same thing as the S20 Ultra, only in the Note form factor with an S Pen, more or less. Which I pretty much.
And you'll have you'll have the Note features there and there, like with sharing and everything like that, right? Yeah. So
I have to say that that's the one thing I've been feeling like, okay, the reason I love the Note series is because of like, it just feels like it's tall and solid and good in the hand, and you can do stuff with it. This is the first S-line phone that I've used that feels this way, but it just makes me want an S Pen.
I love how thin this is. Like, look how thin that is. Like, guys, hold up your big ass phones.
Well, I got a case on mine, so
yeah, I got a case too.
I mean, but those are thick boy. That's a thick boy.
I mean, the camera bump alone makes it thick, man. The camera bump on this thing is crazy.
Yeah.
Thick boy.
You can knock somebody out with that camera hump.
Literally.
What's that? Do you guys watch TikTok?
No.
There's like a sound that people use, like, that's a big boy, that's a thick boy. I can't remember how it goes.
I don't know, man. I try not to go there because
I don't get TikTok. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I wouldn't get it either. And then I feel old, and that would make me sad.
I'm sorry. The kid can have TikTok. I'm trying to make tech content.
Gary Vee said if you're not on TikTok, you're not positioned to make money in 2021.
That's fine.
I'd love to see Gary Vee on TikTok.
Talking about his hockey cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Baseball cards, I guess it is now, right?
Yeah. What, is he not on TikTok? I thought he would be on TikTok.
I don't know. I don't know. The only TikTok stuff that I've seen has been stuff that has been reposted elsewhere from TikTok, and I'm like, what in the God's name is that thing that's happening? I don't understand it. Anyway.
So, Jason, I got a question for you. Switching topic real quick.
Sure.
I put out a tweet earlier today, and the tweet went something like this. After having used this phone for a while, I put out a tweet stating that the iPhone needs an always-on display. And somebody came back and told me that it doesn't really need one since you have an Apple Watch. And my response is, the Apple Watch is a $400+ accessory that most people don't have. And the dude came back and said, like, most people that have an iPhone have an Apple Watch. So, Jason, do you believe that most people that have an iPhone have an Apple Watch? Because I don't think that's the case.
No, not most. Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot. I mean, more people have Apple Watches than I think you might suspect.
Right.
But that's like after 4 or 5 years of Apple Watches being a thing.
Yep.
But I don't even really agree with the Apple Watch being the always on display for the iPhone. I mean, I don't have the Apple Watch Series 5, so I don't have the always on thing anyway. But there's something about the always on display that just being able to leave your phone on the surface that it's lying on and look at it and see that it's 834 and I didn't have to touch it.
Yep.
No, yes, you can all you have to do is like pick up the iPhone. All you have to do is tap it twice or whatever. Something about the always on display is really good. I don't know that anybody's gotten the perfect always on display for me yet.
My wife absolutely loved the OnePlus. Was it the 7 or 7 Pro, whatever it was, the budget one from last year? She loved it, but the only reason she didn't switch over to it from her Galaxy S9 at the time was always on display.
Yeah.
And now she has an S10e and she loves it.
And the thing about the iPhone is that the iPhone has never had an LED notification light, which we used to have on the old school smartphones, and it never had always on display. So the only way that you would know that you had a notification on an iPhone, or the only way that you do know, is if you pick it up by just then double tap it or something like that and unlock it. Yeah. I think it is high time for the iPhone to get always on display because it comes in handy.
Oh, we lost Jason.
I mean, he's frozen.
Oh
my goodness. Whoa. What is this? It's Jasonception.
There's a glitch in the Matrix.
So,
oh my
goodness.
I just had that experience that everyone who's ever used Windows has to have at least a couple of times in their lifetime, where I got the notification a little while ago that like Windows needed to restart, and I said, "Not now."
Oh.
And then 5 minutes later, it started to restart, and I'm like, "Stop it." Oh man, so
that's funny.
I'm surprised that I was able to stop it before it actually went all the way out and started to restart. Otherwise, I'd still be waiting.
That's crazy.
So you sell Apple Watches to people who own Androids? That makes sense to me. There isn't an Android watch by any manufacturer that is of the same level of quality or even usefulness without an iPhone. Like half the time, my Apple Watch is not connected to my iPhone. You know, I just wear it as a watch, and it's connected to Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So, the Apple Watch is a sleeper. Right? You guys have heard me say this a bunch, but the Apple Watch is a sleeper. It's gonna play a bigger role in where Apple goes in the future with their mobile devices than I think.
Oh yeah.
I think anybody really fully understands.
I give it full credit for helping me get healthier.
Yeah, the Apple Watch.
That's key, helping.
The Apple Watch is probably Apple's most important product right now. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at the potential it has for health outcomes and that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, I went to the hospital that 2 Thursdays ago or whatever, and I was having chest pains. It was not like any chest pains I'd ever had before, and I thought, well, I'm 48 years old. I don't know.
Did you figure out what it was?
No, never did.
Weird.
It could have been any number of things, but the tests were all good. But better safe than sorry. Even though I did spend like 9 hours in the waiting room with like basically they took me right away, and then I had to sit, and then I went back for a blood test, and then I had to sit, and then it was like dinner time. But yeah, I did the thing though, knowing full well that the Apple Watch is not gonna diagnose a heart attack. But I did the little test to see what was going on, and it came back okay. But I also had a panic attack one time, and I used that thing, and the Apple Watch said inconclusive or something like that, and I was like, oh, that's scary.
You are inconclusive.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, please try again later. I'm like, what? Like, I don't want to try again later. Am I dying or not?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Apple Watch is really impressive to me. The Apple Watch so far has been really good at letting me know how much I'm slacking at trying to take care of my health. So yeah, because my default face is the one with all the rings on it.
So you feel like let down at the end of the day if you don't close your rings.
Yeah, so then the rings are just like this little claw that goes halfway to 3 o'clock. and then they just sit there.
You know who's always closing his rings is Nikias.
Oh yeah? I believe it. He's a
our
young,
friend
spry individual. I believe it. I believe it for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Close his rings again. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, I got to get mine hooked back up to my phone because it got disconnected somewhere somehow, and
I've sent you several requests to share data, and you're like, nope.
No, I did when we were at CES. I did accept it, but it may have been that my phone wasn't connected to my watch and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
our friend El Jefe does a good job closing his rings.
That's good. That's good. Everybody should close their rings.
Yep. And and I think Jeff told me one time that he actually has his set to like double what it should be. Like he custom set it to like, so he's giving her. Yeah,
I made my calorie goal higher. Never got there. Yeah. So I'm just feeling even worse about it. See, the problem is I would close my rings on a normal regular day. I would close my rings if I went to work and walked from my car and then walked around at work during the day and then walked back to my car. That would close my rings. That's like a half hour. If you do a brisk walk, you're good. But now all I have to do is like slowly slump my way down here to the studio and then sit here for hours on end.
I was gonna say you're not using the green screen tonight.
No,
I don't even know where you are.
I'm in the studio. Just like the wall that's there is the wall that nobody ever saw.
What about Viper? Do you close your rings? every day?
No,
Try day?
not at all. No.
When was the last time Viper was at the gym?
Been a while. I don't know.
Ah.
I've been flagging, so no.
Yeah. I need this thing where I went to the hospital. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, so this didn't end up being a thing, but I'm in that range now where I better start taking it seriously because, I've always weighed more than somebody my size should, and it's always been chalked up to like big bones or whatever. Like I've never been like, my clothes always fit well and I never was obese or anything like that. But by the charts that they have, I am.
Oh, the BMI?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's kind of BS if you ask me.
But if I could drop 20 or so pounds, I would be a lot better off. And so I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking like, okay, you're a smart guy. You can do the math. You've only got probably 30 more years left on this rock.
If you take that headphone jack chip off your shoulder, that's a big weight right there.
Yeah, I know. Well, that should be helping me close my rings.
There you go.
Yeah. So
we're at the hour and 40-minute mark. We're past our normal time.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I think we're also past, like, we've worked through all the stuff that we wanted to discuss, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think so.
Yeah. I think we're not going to do the after show tonight because I didn't sleep last night. I haven't slept in the past few nights for reasons I don't even understand. So I'm going to try and get some sleep, and I'll be back on Friday morning with Friday morning coffee. I didn't get to do that last week, but this being the Painfully Honest Tech podcast, sponsored by Audible, you can get yourself one free Audible book plus 2 Audible originals for free by signing up at audibletrial.com/painfully honest tech. Just choose one. William Gibson, one of my favorite writers, has a new book out, and maybe you want to get that one because I just bought it the other day and I'm looking forward to reading it. So, any parting words, fellas?
Yes, science.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah. Some of y'all need to get out y'all feelings about your brand loyalty and your opinions. Last time I checked, we were allowed to disagree. Disagreeing with someone is okay. Actually, sometimes when you disagree with someone, it's an opportunity to learn why the disagreement exists in the first place. So you might learn something that you didn't know because of the disagreement. So don't be so damn in your feelings about disagreeing or somebody not feeling the same way you do about a product, thing, or whatever. Live life and learn.
Words to live by, very literally. I can't agree more because it would make my life a whole lot easier if people would get out of their feelings about stuff that they like, because I have to hear about it all the time, but that's part of the business, right? Anyway, folks, thanks so much for being here this evening. Once again, my name is Jason. We got this thing on all of the Apple podcasty places that you can go and get all the podcasts. So go there, tell your friends to go, check it all out, subscribe, 5-star, rate us, all the good things. But until the next time, next Tuesday, when we're coming back again, everybody stay healthy, stay smart. And until the next time, we're out.